Hiya folks. In this video, we're going to take a look at a fun way to use Spring AI to interact with images as context for answering questions, and even writing some poetry along the way. But first, take note of the social media links below and follow me there if you aren't already. And be sure to visit my website, habuma.com, for more video content, my speaking schedule, and other things you might find interesting. Generative AI is a white-hot topic of the past year or more. Everyone's talking about it and how it's changing how we do our jobs and live our lives. When it comes to enabling Gen AI in your applications, especially if your applications are Java-based Spring applications, Spring AI is an exciting, newish framework for integrating with various AI API providers and their underlying large language models, or LLMs for short. In fact, I'm so excited about Spring AI that I'm writing a book about it, but more on that at the end of the video. One of the biggest topics in Gen AI is RAG, or what's called Retrieval Augmented Generation. It enables you to ask questions about content that the LLMs just aren't trained on, including documents that might be private to your organization. But not all questions are about documents. As cool as RAG is, you might want to pose questions or submit prompts about images, not textual documents. Wouldn't it be cool if you could ask questions or perform other generative AI operations against an image? Well, great news, you can. Several LLMs are considered multimodal, which means, among other things, that you can send images as context in the prompts you send. Or, to put it another way, you can ask questions about images. Let's see how to do exactly that with Spring AI. All right, we're going to start by just creating a brand new Spring Boot project. I'm going to use IntelliJ to do that, but you use your IDE or whatever, start.spring.io or whatever your favorite way of starting a Spring Boot project is. So I'm going to say new project, and we're going to call this, what shall we call it? How about image Q and A. It's not a really good name because we got words jumbled together there, but it'll be fine. We're going to build with Gradle. We're going to use Java as our language. I am going to pick Java 21, even though technically 17 would work fine. I just like to pick 21. I'm going to say next. I'm going to add two dependencies. We're going to be using OpenAI's GPT-4o as our model. Therefore, I'm going to need to add the OpenAI, the Spring AI, OpenAI dependency to the build. And we're going to be building a REST API. So I'm just going to use Spring MVC to do that. It's going to add the Spring Web dependency to our build. And that's it. That's all we really need for our dependencies. Go ahead and create that project. We're going to give it a second to get started. I'm going to go ahead and close the help. We don't really need that. And I am going to make my IDE a little bit bigger so that we don't have to scroll around as much. All right. So the first things first, before I forget, the most important thing you need to do is you need to set your API key. Now, if you don't already have an OpenAI API key, you're going to need to go and get one. And if you go to, I think it's at api.openai.com, I think it's the URL. That's where you can go in there, sign up, request an API key, and then you can set it. And the way you would set it in a Spring AI app is by setting the Spring AI OpenAI API key property. You could set this as an environment variable if you'd like. So it would be all capitals, Spring_AI_OpenAI_API_key. You could do that if you wanted to as an environment variable instead. But I'm just going to go ahead and set it in here. And the reason I do that is because I don't ever put my API key directly in the code. Instead, I set it to OpenAI API key. I already have an environment variable called OpenAI API key, and I'm just going to reference it here. Now you may be wondering, well, Craig, why did you choose to do that? Why didn't you use Spring AI OpenAI API key as an environment variable? And yes, I could have done that, but I chose to set it as OpenAI API key because there are other frameworks and libraries out there, such as LangChain and Llama Index, that already rely on OpenAI API key as an environment variable. So I'm just kind of latching onto that. I set it in that one spot, and then everybody can use it. So here we go. I've already set that. We're set it here in our application properties. Now we're ready to write some code. Now, ultimately, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a REST API that's kind of a multimodal Q&A REST API. And so to make that work, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, I'm going to create a question and an answer record. So I'm going to create a question, record. And question is going to capture the question that the user is asking. It's going to just simply say question. It's going to just simply wrap a string. And I could take this as a parameter in the request if I wanted to, but then I have to start and make it a GET request, but then I have to start putting pluses and stuff like that in there. By capturing it as a string wrapped in a record like I am here, is just going to make the request easier to work with. I'm going to do a very similar thing for answer. So I'm going to create an answer record, string answer, and I just realized that Copilot was suggesting exactly what I wanted to type, and I just ignored it. My bad. All right, so now that we have a question and our answer ready as records, we're ready to write the controller. All right, so actually before we do that, I did just now remember there is one other property I should go set. It's springai.openai.chatOptions model. Now by default, I'm using, well, right now I'm using Spring AI 1.0.0 milestone 1, and its default model is GPT 3.5, which does not support what we're about to do with images. Instead, I'm going to set it to use GPT 4.0 because GPT 4.0 does support images, does support multimodal type interactions. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to GPT 4.0. Now, be aware that Spring AI 1.0.0 milestone 2 should be out relatively soon. And when that happens, I believe they're changing it to default to GPT 4.0. They might change it to GPT 4.0 mini, I don't know. But last I looked, it was still GPT 4.0. And so you wouldn't have to set this, it would just default to that. But since I'm using 1.0.0 milestone 1, I do have to override the default and set it to GPT 4.0. All right, with that said, let's go write our controller. So new Java class, we're going to call this our Ask controller. And if you've ever seen me do any Spring AI work before where I'm building essentially a Q&A type controller, this you already recognize what I'm about to do. This looks very much like what I always do to start off a request. In fact, this is exactly how I started off creating the application in my book, Spring AI in Action, as I started with a simple Ask controller. So we're going to use this Ask controller to handle post requests for /ask. They're going to handle not what Copilot's thinking I'm going to do here. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to handle ask, where the request body is the question, and I could return an answer. I don't know. And if I were to run this right now, it would work. It just wouldn't do anything interesting. So let's create our constructor for Ask controller such that it takes a chat client builder. And that's not what I want it to do. I want it to do this. I want to say build, and I'm going to set chat client to that whatever the chat client builder builds. Now, in older versions of Spring AI, you could be auto wired with a chat client, but that no longer works that way in the latest versions of Spring AI. Instead, you're going to be given a chat client builder. On that, you can go set all sorts of really interesting things that have nothing to do with this video, but you could go set on there a default system prompt, a default user prompt. You could set some functions that could be called, some advisors, and those are all topics for a completely different video that's not this one. So for now, I'm just going to simply call build and call it good. Okay, so we're going to get our chat client, and then down here, I'm going to just do the simplest thing that could possibly work. I'm going to say chat client dot prompt. I'm going to go set the user prompt to just simply have a text that is the text of the question. So I'm going to say question.question to get it in there. I'm going to say call, and then I'm going to say entity so that I can get this back as an answer. And then once I do this, that can go away, and I can just simply return what that does. So what's happening here is I created a prompt, I'm sending the question, I'm actually making the call, and then I'm taking whatever the response is and I'm forcing it into an answer object. So under the covers, under this line right here, what's happening is it's going to end up sending some instructions, some JSON schema instructions along with the question the user asked. It's going to send those along the way to tell it, hey, come back with a JSON response. And then it's going to take whatever that JSON response is and bind it to this answer object that it's going to create. That way I can return it. It's going to work out really well. All right, so the only thing I'm not doing yet is I am not yet asking it to upload an image. But that's okay. This is the very basic thing we could do. Let's give this a spin and see if it works. So I'm going to start it up in the IDE, and I hope I don't have anything already running on port 8080. And if I don't, it should start up just fine. All right, started on port 8080. So now let me get a window to work in. I'm going to pull over a iTerm window. I'm going to make the font a little bigger so you don't have to squint to see it. And I'm going to use HTTP IE to do this. If you want to use curl, that's on you, but I'm going to use HTTP IE to do this. And I'm going to go to localhost 8080 ask. I'm going to say question, why is the sky blue? And it's going to come back with hopefully an answer about scattering, Rayleigh scattering, or in this case, because the air scatters blue light from the sun more than it scatters red light. Okay, so I mean that's a good answer. So it works. It has nothing to do with answering questions about an image, but it does prove that at least the foundation of what my application is going to do works fine. All right, now from this foundation, we could do a lot of different things. We could build a RAG application where we could talk to our documents. We could give it some functions to call if it thinks it needs to call some functions to get some real-time data or to perform some operation. We could have it use chat history so it can remember the conversation. So as we continue to interact with the API, it continues to remember what we've talked about before, so we have an ongoing discussion with our application. We could do those things, and those are all great topics to talk about. They are just not the topic of this video. I may make more videos about that, and if I do, maybe I'll create videos that show how to do exactly those things. Of course, my book also covers those things as well if you want to check those out. But what we're focused on today is we're focused on asking questions about an image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find an image, and I just happen to have some images sitting around waiting over here. So I'm going to take and copy this one, this forecast.jpg, which is just a screenshot I took from my phone a couple months ago, weather forecast. So it's simple weather weather forecast screenshot that I took from my phone. I'm going to copy that over here, if it'll let me do so, copy it over here under resources. And I should have forecast there. And then we're going to use this image here in a minute. I'm going to copy it over there as well. Might as well go ahead and copy it and get it out of the way. Yes. Cool. And then I'm just going to move this out of the way. That can go over there. Okay, great. So now that we have these images over here, I'm going to pick on forecast first. All right, I'm just going to add the image here as a class path resource. I'm going to use the @value annotation to tell it to not load a YAML file. I don't know why Copilot thought that would be a good idea, but I'm going to load the forecast.jpg file. I'm going to load that as a resource that we're going to call a Spring resource that we're going to call image resource. All right, now that we have that, before we call the call method, before we do that, I'm going to change how the user method works. Right now we're just simply passing it in a string. I'm going to change it so that it's going to take a user spec. Okay? And in that user spec, you kind of format this a little bit better so it's a little easier to read. There we go. I'm going to say user spec dot, actually the more I look at this, the more I like the idea of not even having those curly braces. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to say user spec dot text. That's going to still be the text of our question. And then also, let's put this on another line so it's a little bit easier to read. Also, in addition to that, I'm going to say media type utils. Did I get that right? Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. It's not media type utils. It's MIME type utils from Org Spring Framework util. And I'm going to just say that's an image JPEG. And actually, looks like Copilot was starting to recommend the right thing, and I ignored it, so my bad. There we go. So I'm saying, okay, the user spec is going to take the question as text. It's going to take the image as a type of media of type JPEG, and then we're going to ask questions about it. All right, so let's restart the application and see what happens. Looks like it's restarting. Pull my window back up. I hit it somewhere. Let's see. Oh, I accidentally closed it. My bad. Let me see if I can get that back. Gonna pull this back up. And we're gonna say HTTP 8080 ask. Question is, what would be a good day to wash my car? And using that image, it's going to give me an answer. Saturday. It says Saturday would be a good day to wash my car. And it looks like Saturday is a sunny day. It's 76, at least in this forecast image. So that looks like that's going to work just fine. Let's try again. Let's ask it for a different question. What would ask question equal, should I wash my car on, and let's pick a bad day, how about Tuesday? And it's going to come back and say no. No, it wasn't very informative about why, so let's ask it about why. Why or why not? It wasn't very helpful in that regard either. Okay, I mean, I could probably tweak the prompt a little, make it a little bit more useful. Let's try one more question, see if it can give me something else a little bit more useful. Which days would be a good day, would be good to wash my car? Friday, Saturday, and Tuesday. And I assume they mean Tuesday of the next week. So if you look, it didn't like Thursday, probably maybe because it's a little cooler, maybe because it's partly cloudy and there might still be a small chance of rain in there, I don't know. But definitely it feels that Friday, Saturday, and next Tuesday, and by next Tuesday I mean back in May, they were mostly sunny, they're fairly warm, therefore those would be good days to do that. How about we ask, I guess, one more question. Which days would be bad days to wash my car? And I would suspect it would pick the other days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, and Monday. Yes, Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, and Monday. Those are bad days to wash my car. So we were able to ask questions about this forecast image, and it was able to give us good answers back. Well, let's try that other image now. Let's make a small change to our code. And again, if this was being uploaded, I wouldn't have to make a change. I just have to upload something different. But for this, I'm going to load up this picture. And it is a picture of, let me load it up so you can see what it looks like. It's a picture of the Millennium Falcon. This is taken in Disney's Hollywood Studios in Walt Disney World on a rainy day. I took this picture. I remember taking this picture. It's one of the best pictures I have of the Falcon that has nobody in it. By the way, pro tip for you, if you want to take good pictures in Disney World, go when it rains. Everybody leaves. They scatter like cockroaches. So I got a good picture of the Millennium Falcon with nobody in it. And there's not even a stroller in this image. That's what's amazing. But nonetheless, here's the image we're going to ask questions about. All right. So let's go. Now that we have that changed, make sure, double check, make sure I get the name right. Yes, DHS Falcon.jpg. Let's fire up the application one more time. And once it's started up, let's say ask question equal write a haiku about this image. Not really asking a question, we're just giving an instruction. Write a haiku about this image. Let's see what it comes up with. It's taking a while to really think it through. Spaceship at rest here. Mountains whisper tales of stars. Journey to begin. Now, whether that's a proper haiku or not, I don't know. Spaceship at rest here. That works. Mountains whisper tales of stars. That's good. Journey to begin. Yes, that's a proper haiku. Let's try it again. See if it gives us something else. Rustic ship at rest. Mountains whisper tales untold. Journey waits beyond. Yes, that sounds all, I think I counted the syllables right as I was reading that. That sounds like a proper haiku as well. So there you go. We were able to ask questions about the weather, but we were also able to give it a photograph and ask it to write a haiku about that. So with that said, let's wrap this up with a little bit of recap. We created a relatively simple Spring Boot application empowered with Spring AI that sends an image along with its text so that you can ask questions about the image. We were even able to ask the LLM to create some out-of-this-world poetry about a beloved hunk of junk that's got it where it counts. All right, if you want to get the code for what we did in this video, you can go pick it up or something similar to it at github.com/habuma/Spring AI examples. There's already a project in that repository called Spring AI Multimodal that you can use. Or if you're using the Spring CLI, all you need to do is add the Spring project catalog to your local installation of Spring AI using the command below. You can use Spring project list to verify that it's there, and say Spring Boot new, whatever you want to call the project, Spring AI multimodal, and then whatever package name you'd like to use. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've learned something and are as excited about Spring AI as I am. And in case you missed it before, here's where you can find me on social media if you want to follow along. And check out my website where you'll find things like my speaking schedule as well as the links to more video content that I've created. And of course, check out my books. Spring AI in Action, I'm currently writing that, but already the first 4 chapters are available in early access, or what Manning calls the Manning Early Access Program, or MEAP. Or you might be watching this from the future, and if so, the book might already be in its final printed form. Spring in Action and Build Talking Apps with Alexa are some other great stuff you might find useful and interesting. But again, once more, thank you so much for watching and happy coding.